now giving a lot of stuff to Abram. So Abram did something bad, but he's kind of getting a lot of good because he did something bad. Now is it right then to do bad? No, again, we clearly see that the story doesn't see this as Abram doing the right thing. Okay, because Abram is thinking of himself. Abram is thinking of what God told him, right? So he's like fighting for God, kind of, but it's not. He's thinking about himself. It's about himself. Very selfish, willing to offer his wife. But actually now he gets all these things from Pharaoh. Okay, verse 17. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife. Just one thing still about verse 16, camels. Camels were kind of a very expensive kind of animal. Okay, so yeah, that kind of a gift would have been a really expensive kind of a gift by Pharaoh. He was giving lots of very good gifts. Not the best, not the worst, but the best actually. The most expensive kinds of gifts to Abram. Now, as a result of all of this, there's an interesting reaction. God is inflicting Pharaoh by giving all these great plagues because of something Pharaoh did. Was Pharaoh right in taking Sarah? Well, it's just Abram's sister. Why not? Okay, so this was their culture. Okay, Abram was the one that's wrong. And now God is inflicting. So why God is inflicting Pharaoh? Even though, okay, there's a few things we can learn here. Not knowing the law. We know if you don't know the law of a country, you break that law, you will be put in prison. You can't say, oh, I didn't know the law. If you go to Singapore and you put bubblegum all over the place, I mean, there's lots of laws and regulations in Singapore. They have jokes about it. But if you broke these laws and you caught, you will be caned. Doesn't matter if you're an American citizen or what, you will be caned. Okay, so not knowing the law does not justify you breaking the law. So in a sense, Pharaoh not knowing the truth about Sarah doesn't justify him in breaking that. And so people not knowing the gospel, okay, that does not justify them. So one day they can't say to God, oh, we didn't know the gospel, so therefore you can't send us to hell. No, they will go to hell. Yes, God is grace, He will judge them differently, but they will still go to hell. Okay? So we still need to take the gospel to everyone, so that they know the Lord, that they know the truth. Okay, so that is one thing that we can learn as well from this. Not knowing the law, if you then break it, does not justify you. It does not take the punishment of the law away from you. It might lessen it a bit, but it's not going to take it away from you. And then understanding as well the idea of the Great Plagues. Now we are going to meet the Great Plagues again. The time when God is going to send the plagues over Pharaoh, over Egypt, when Pharaoh doesn't want to let Moses and the people go. Okay, so there the plagues, here the plagues. Okay, so these people, Pharaoh and the Egyptians, suffered a lot on the plagues because actually of the Israelis and actually their sin. Okay. So the other thing is, God is not justifying. Abram is going to suffer because of, ultimately, in the end, he's going to suffer because of the sin. Right? There's going to be repercussions of the sin. But God, in His grace, is now actually punishing somebody else. So yeah, you as a Christian, you can't just say, sin and think you're going to get away from it. Okay, in Romans chapter 6, Paul as well addressed that question. So that you sin, so the grace become more. Abram sinned here, the grace became more. Look at all the stuff he got. No, you're a new person. You can't do this. But remember, in Abram's case, he's not a new person yet. That faith in God is not there to that stage yet. He's not ready to take and offer Isaac to God as a sacrifice yet. He's still sinning. He's still thinking he needs to do things. And so those things still need to happen. Abram still needs to grow in his faith in God. Verse 18. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she's your wife? So then, I mean, it makes sense that Abram asking Pharaoh asking Abram, why? Right? Why did you lie to me? Now, Abram would then say, the idea of he already justified himself, because then I won't be killed. But that's not a justification, right? That's not a justification. Protecting people by saying drinking alcohol is a sin, right? That's not just justification for lying. Protecting himself by lying, that's not a justification. Verse 19. Why did you say she's my sister? So I took her for my wife. Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Okay? So I sinned, Pharaoh. I took her as my wife. Right? Now that would mean that most likely he had sexual intercourse with her. I mean, that is the kind of idea. Otherwise, she's not a wife yet. She's just there, but she's not a wife yet. Now I know this is questionable. We can't be 100% sure, but it would be logical that this is what happened already. So she actually did suffer because of this. Okay? So he now said, take your wife and go. Right? So he's angry at him. And rightly so. They are suffering because of this sin. Suffering because of this life. So he's like telling him, take your wife, go. And we're going to see how he's going to kick him out of Egypt. Verse 20. And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. Okay, so here we see the result. He's kicked out of the land. We don't know if the famine is already over. Will he go back and his food, all this that he's getting to feed them, will he survive? They are forcefully, the men, have orders to kick Abram out of the land. Right, and again, years later on, when Moses are kicked, after all those plagues, they are kicked out of the land as well. The same way Abram is, in a sense, kicked out of the land. Right, so this is where this chapter ends. Okay, Abram enters the promised land. Abram in Haran, right? The conclusion to this chapter. Abram in Haran, where he gets the call. He lived there already a number of years, collecting property, collecting most likely animals, people. Now he's told again to take his whole family, take Sarah, his wife, his nephew Lot, and they go to the land of Canaan. In the land of Canaan, he finds no place where he can settle down. He needs to move from place to place to place. And in two places he builds altars. God appears to him. God tells him again that he will give him this promise, that he will give him the land, that he will give him the children. Okay, then before he can, he needs to keep on moving, and he can't even just keep on moving. He needs to leave the land of Canaan. Because it's a drought. I mean, just imagine if God tells you, okay, that you're going to get this beautiful land. I'm sending you this promised land where you'll have the offering, you'll have this land, and then what does he get? He gets a drought. He doesn't get anything. He can't settle down. Okay, so it must have looked very strange to him. It looks strange in the story. Okay, and the people there in the desert, on the way to the promised land, they're in the desert on the way to the promised land. They are like Abram here. They can't settle down. Okay, so and then they need to go to Egypt. And there, before that, Abram thinks they might think his wife is beautiful, and he's correct. And so he tells, tell you my sister, so that I want to keep the selfishness of Abram. Okay, and then God sends the plagues. God judges ultimately for the sake of Abram. Right? God judges Pharaoh, and Pharaoh gets the plagues. Pharaoh suffers. And then after that, the result, Pharaoh said, you go out of this land. Okay, that is as well a punishment. He's kicked out of the land. Bad relationships between Pharaoh. Okay, Pharaoh would have been able maybe to protect him later on, but now he's on the bad side of Pharaoh because of the